thank you to the coalition, and thank you to the students for putting on this really enlightening event for voters. I'm Kelly Mazeski, and my husband and I have lived in the Barrington area, the north end of the district, for 27 years, and that's where we raised our family. And during that time, I have spent 18 years in local government. And during that time, I have learned what leadership looks like. And it doesn't look like Peter Roskam. And I announced my campaign last May on the same day that Roskam voted to make Americans pay more to get less for their health care. And I want to tell you my personal story about why I did that. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 3 years ago, and my daughter has been struggling with a rare pre-existing condition that affects her heart. And while I was going through chemotherapy and my daughter was really working hard to get better, we were notified by our insurance company of 20 years that they weren't going to cover us the next year. So this was devastating for us. And I can tell you that I had a good cry at my kitchen counter, wondering where we were going to find insurance, how much it was going to cost, and would my daughter and I be able to keep our doctors. And that is something that no one in this room and no American should ever have to be asking themselves when they're going through one of the scariest, most difficult times of their lives. So that is why I want to be your champion for health care. I want to work to reduce cost, improve quality, and make sure that every American has health care coverage. I want to be the person in the general election that sits across the table from Peter Roskam and asks him why he voted to endanger health care coverage for my daughter and millions of Americans. And that's why I'm here tonight, asking for your vote and your support on March 20th. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned before, health care is a very personal issue for me. And what I suggest, what I think we should do as a country is move forward with a Medicare for all public option. And what that means simply is opening Medicare to everybody, regardless of age. I think we need to use the strong negotiating arm of the federal government to put pressure on insurance premiums, competing side by side with private insurance plans on the market. And we can use that negotiating power to also reduce the cost of care itself, which is also outrageous right now. But something that people aren't talking about as much is this tax bill that the Republicans are trying to pass and how it ties into health care. Because right now, if they are able to pass this bill, it is going to add to the deficit $1.5 trillion. And the Republicans are already talking about how they're going to pay for that. And guess what? They're talking about cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So those of you who are in this audience tonight who are benefiting from those programs, they're coming after you. So we have a lot of things at stake right now, and this is why we need a Democrat in Congress. We need a Democrat to win this election and to have a check and balance in Congress against this extreme Trump agenda that wants to make it harder for people to get health care. Yeah, that took me by surprise. I am absolutely for progressive income tax. I need to go on the record that when I ran for state senate last year, I did come out on that, but I've come to see the light because of the insane agenda or lack of an agenda by our Governor Bruce Rauner. Because the only way that we're going to start bailing this state out and making tough decisions, tough economic decisions for the state to deal with the pension, is to start raising taxes. And I don't want to see that happen on the backs of the middle class and low-income families. The Republicans are working to pass a GOP tax bill that really is a massive shift of wealth to the ultra-rich and giant corporations. And if I'm fortunate to be elected as your congresswoman, I would absolutely vote to repeal this terrible, terrible tax plan. And I'm sitting here thinking about answering one thing here, and there are so many things, but I guess if I was going to focus on one thing, it would be the double tax. Because right now you're going to pay, you are used to getting a tax break for state and local taxes, and Peter Roskam is taking that away from you. So he's not looking out for you, he's not looking out for the middle class, and he's one of the primary architects of this tax bill. And I think, as a country, we have to help the middle class. People in the middle class are saddled with the greatest cost. They have to cover health care. They have to pay for education. They have to pay for child care. And so it's important to help hardworking people who are trying to get ahead. My husband is a small business owner. I understand what that's about too. Small businesses drive this economy. We all know this. And we need to give tax breaks for research and development, because right now I'm worried that with this Republican administration, we're going to move backwards when it comes to research. I'm a former scientist. I used to be a product development chemist. I realized how important, my mic went off, how important research and development is. And we need to also give incentives to train employees to keep them on top of their job skills. We need to have a workforce that is well educated and has the skills to compete in the 21st century, and we need to help small businesses do that. The environment is something that is very near and dear to my heart. Years ago, when my kids were toddlers, I was a nature lady. I taught environmental classes at District 220 schools as part of a program for Citizens for Conservation. I've reseeded prairies. I currently take CPS children on bird walks in the city to help them connect with nature in their urban settings. I've also done a lot of other things, including working for the Sierra Club, and I was a super volunteer and did energy and environment policy outreach for the Obama campaign on the national level in 07 and 08, which I have to say is one of the thrills of my life. And because of many things I've done, and some which may not be, I'm not going through all of it, but 3 years ago I was elected to the Illinois Environmental Council because of my commitment to the environment. So it's hard to say one thing. The no-brainer answer is get us back on the climate accord, the Paris Climate Accord. It's an embarrassment to be America and not part of that. But renewable energy is the area we really should be focusing on. It is one of the greatest economic opportunities that this country has had in decades. So it is a win-win situation. We can help combat climate change and we can help with our economy. The fastest growing job in America right now is wind turbine technician. Jobs in wind and solar are growing 12 times faster than the rest of the economy. So this is an area that we need to be investing in, and again, why we need a Democrat to win this race. Thank you.
Well, listen, a lot of immigrants, a lot of our relatives have come over here looking for hope and opportunity. And that's still happening today. And I think that's one of the things that makes our country great. I absolutely think that we have to help undocumented immigrants come out of the shadows and be part of our society and have a clear path to citizenship. When it comes to DACA, I absolutely support putting that program back in place, and I also support and would vote to pass the DREAM Act. We have to help the dreamers, the children who were born or only know this country from a very young age. And I want to give a shout out to Senator Dick Durbin, who has spent many years working for the benefit of the dreamers. When it comes to immigration reform, I think we need a new comprehensive plan. And I also feel optimistic that a comprehensive immigration reform is something that both parties can come together and work on. Net neutrality is a no-brainer. Absolutely, absolutely, positively support it. We need to have a free and open internet. And, you know, the best thing I can think of to compare net neutrality and an open and free internet is thinking about your cable services. Because many of you in here have, you know, pay for the normal basic package for cable, and then you find out when you're complaining about your bill, make a phone call that, hey, you can get premium for the same price, but really we're used to paying higher prices for premium cable services. And it's the same way with net neutrality. They want to charge you more. The idea is to charge you to get freer, faster access to certain information. It should be like the library. You can go in and get any book you want, any information, at any time. So I'm absolutely a supporter of it. I would oppose any bill that would take away net neutrality, even if the FEC supports not having it, I would be adamantly against it. I think it's clear that everybody up here really cares about making better lives for Americans. As Democrats, we are working to put more money in the pockets of the middle class, while Republicans are giving tax breaks to giant corporations. We want to make health care affordable and accessible for all Americans. They're making it harder to get it. We're fighting for climate change, and they're pushing fossil fuels. The differences could not be clearer. And this is why we need a Democrat in Congress to be a check and balance against this extreme, dangerous Trump agenda. And I'm that Democrat. I was recently very, very fortunate to get the endorsement of Emily's List and Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and Congresswoman Sherry Bustos, because they think that I'm the candidate that can beat Peter Roskam. And I just want to remind you, again, that health care is a very personal issue for me, and I want to be the person in the general election who sits across the table from Peter Roskam and asks him why he has voted to endanger health care coverage for my daughter and millions of Americans. So I'm here tonight asking for your support and your vote on March 20th. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity.